Smell that, boys and girls? That smell in the air? It smells like... well... I'll be honest, I was going to start this off with a joke about smelling smog or something, but I realized that would sound like I'm saying that Smogon is just air pollution. And they aren't. They're actually great to have around. Though not for the reason that some of the defenders seem to think. Let me stress this first. I am not a competitive player. I enjoy the game's RPGs, and when I go online to battle, I do it just to have some fun to see how my team stacks up. That being said, I like Smogon. I see it as more as a guide for how it can make a Pokemon good, giving it sets and such to base off of. However, as I said, I am not a competitive player, and I don't let them decide what I think is or is not a good Pokemon. And since I don't compete, I don't care about tiers. Still, I can see the reason behind the tiers. And no, it's not that every Pokemon fits in every tier and will always remain there, though some suck. Let's just face it, nobody's gonna fight in an OU tier with a frickin' Magikarp. I think. I hope. Someone's probably proving me wrong right now, aren't they? The point of having tier rankings at all isn't to restrict what Pokemon you can bring to where it's necessary. It's to be a resource for people who don't play Pokemon competitively to draw on the experience from more experienced players and understand how the competitive metagame works. Like, imagine someone who's completely new to the competitive scene. What kind of Pokemon should they raise? What kind of moves should they teach them? What held items pair up best with those Pokemon? Smogon is a good place to go to in order to learn how people have raised other Pokemon in the past. Plus, sometimes Smogon has an amazing sense of humor. Like, check this out. This is from their page on Farfetch'd, specifically from the 5th generation. Insert dramatic music, please. In Generation 5, many monsters rely on cowardly tactics, hit-and-run maneuvers with choice items, unfairly exploiting their foes' typings to set up, or using despicable entry hazards to violate the sanctity of Focus Sash. Some simply use sheer brute force to crush those foes who are less fortunate, or a favorable typing and natural defensive power to wall their foes. Farfetch is a simpler kind of Pokemon. An honorable Pokemon. A decent Pokemon. Using Farfetch'd isn't just picking a team member, it's standing up for the restoration of knightly virtue to Pokemon battles. Farfetch'd can't use choice items, it doesn't have a stab combo that leaves many Pokemon no choice but to flee, nor does it wield those entry hazards, or any other such trickery. And of course it is humble, statistically. Farfetch is the Pokemon which desires a duel, in a situation where its foe grants it the chance it needs to show its abilities. It cannot be beat. This page is possibly the funniest thing ever written about a Pokemon fan ever, and I demand to be recognized as such. And hey, it's not like you have to follow Smogon's rules. Hell, if Pachirisu can be used to win the World Championships a couple years ago, anything's possible. No one's holding a shotgun to your back saying you have to follow their rules and tiers. Well, possibly there is someone with a shotgun at your back, but if so, that's probably an isolated case, not my problem. Most of us don't have to deal with that when we net battle. Smogon's taken a lot of flack from various members of the competitive Pokemon community who take umbrage with specific tier ratings for certain Pokemon, or even with the very idea of having tiers at all. And I get where they're coming from. In a game that has a big roster as Pokemon, there are tons of things you can do with a team that have a strategic value, if only because they're just weird and impossible to see coming. Maybe some Pokemon really have been unfairly classified as underused or never used. Maybe some Pokemon have potential just waiting to be teased out by genius trainers. Of course, the thing is, first you have to know how to understand the potential of Pokemon in the first place. What a lot of Smogon's detractors just don't get is that Smogon is about handing people who want to learn how to play Pokemon competitively the tools to understand a very broad view of Pokemon's metagame. It's not going to teach you how to innovate, but that's never been the point. Innovating a competitive game is usually done by experienced players who understand the fundamentals, and pick up on tricks that other people haven't noticed yet. Someone who doesn't know how the competitive game even works on a fundamental level isn't going to have the savvy to do that without a little helpful, friendly advice. Or a big old webpage with tons of entries comparing Pokemon, suggesting movesets, EV spreads, IV spreads, and suggestions on various roles you can have with Pokemon on your team. Like I said though, I'm not a competitive player, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I still wanted to get my thoughts out here on these guys. What do you all think? Got an opinion on Smogon? Share in the comments below.